Goober gang, what's up? I want you to pretend that you caught a record size fish. What would you do next? Not sure? Either was I, so I reached out to 10 different anglers that you know through YouTube and surprised them with the same question. Follow along through this 10-part series to figure out what they had to say. In the last episode, we interviewed Mike from Kayak Mike YouTube channel, and he passed the question on to...
I definitely want to pass this question on to my mentor, Mark Blauvelt. He currently has the West Virginia State Record Blue Cat, so he has to know the process.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be really cool. We've had people with the aspirations of catching it. Now we need to go talk to somebody that's actually done it before, because that experience was like very cool.
Sweet. I look forward to seeing his answer.
All right, well, you asked for it, ladies and gentlemen, so we've got him on screen here. Why don't you tell us who you are and where you fish?
Hello, this is Mark Blauvelt. Where do I fish? I live in southwest Ohio near Dayton. It's about an hour and a half for me to get down to the Ohio River around Cincinnati. That's kind of my home big waters. I fish a lot of the inland lakes around Ohio and some of the Midwest for channel cats. That's pretty much my strong suit. So
I understand. I understand you've got a history of chasing some big fish too, maybe traveling a little bit.
My normal big tournament partner is Ryan Lawrence. He lives down in Nashville now, but he did live here for a while, so we still fish a lot of big tournaments together. Placed at several Cabela's tournaments, had several big fish, placed at Mississippi River Monsters.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to think, a couple other pretty big tournaments. Still waiting for that big win. We took second and big fish at one of the Cat Masters events last year, not this year, down at Helena on the Mississippi. So that was great. That was cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Quite the resume there. So this actually builds right into our main question for the night. You ready for it?
Sure. All
right, we're going to get your answer here, a little candid action here. The question is, if you were out on the water, any water, big water, whatever, and a rod goes down and you get a look at this fish and it's a potential state record, world record, what's your plan of action for the next however many hours it takes to get this thing taken care of?
Well, as you probably know, I'm a good person for that, since that happened to me.
Yes. That's why I was really excited to get you on the show.
Yeah, there you go. So, for those that don't know, I still hold from 5 years ago the West Virginia Blue Cat state record, and I actually caught it in the middle of a Cabela's King Cat tournament out of Gallipolis, Ohio. So that fish was just a hair under 60 pounds.
Oh, wow, that's a monster.
Yeah, when Cabela's weighed it was just over 60, and then the official weight was just under 60. So
so go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so what had happened is we were vertically drifting, and I think I caught it about noon. So we had a couple hours left in the tournament. I caught the fish on one of my B&M 10-foot casting rods. Okay. So being a 10-foot rod, it's like a fly rod, right? They're more noodly, they're more limber.
Yeah.
But it helped keep the rods further away from the boat as we were vertically drifting. So I still am appreciative. I'm pretty sure that helped in the whole point. So I hooked the fish. I knew it was a pretty good fish because he felt like a flathead. He didn't want to come off the bottom.
Okay.
And people that catch blues know that usually, they bulldog a little bit, but once they start coming off the bottom, they slowly keep coming. They may turn and bulldog back down, but this fish was not like that. I had that rod all the way around the boat about 4 times. Wow. And the boat's free drifting, Yeah. And Ryan standing there with the net for like 10 minutes, like, come on, hurry up. We got business to take care of here. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, man, I'm like, he ain't moving. And so finally comes up, and of course, we see him once, but don't get a net on him. And so then you really freak out.
Right.
Oh my gosh. And I don't know, he's a state record. At this point, he's a big fish. I need him for the tournament.
Right.
You know, then you start, you know, making deals with God to not lose this fish. And so he bulldogs down. He came back up, and then, you know, Ryan netted him. Great job there. And we get him in the boat, and we're just like, oh my gosh, this fish is, you know, 60 pounder. So that's a great fish. Even in Wheeler, that's a great fish.
Absolutely.
So, but up here, it's an even better fish. And of course, I didn't really realize what the state record was. Maybe I knew it, but you know, it wasn't like you expect it.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
And so we get it in the boat, put him in the live well, and he fills up most of the live well. You know, big fish, because Ryan had his smaller 20-foot river cat boat, so it doesn't have an 80-gallon live well. It's got like a 40-gallon live well in it,
Okay.
and it pretty much filled it up. So we called Jeremy Coe, who's the tournament director. Everybody that's fished Cabela's for years knows Jeremy.
Right.
And we're like, man, we got this really good fish. And he's like, well, how big is he? And we're like, well, you know, he topped out our 50-pound scale before we put him in the live well. But, you know, we didn't waste much time.
Yeah.
And Jeremy's thinking, well, man, because I think the old record was like 51 pounds or something like that.
Okay.
And he was like, man, that might be a state record. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm like, you know, I don't know, you know, whatever. And he's like, let me call you back. So he looked it up and everything and came back, and he's like, man, you know, that would be close enough to a record. He goes, I'm going to see if I can get some DNR guys to show up for it.
There you go.
I'm like, okay, that's great. So this is, I don't know, noon, and we're fishing till 3, weigh-ins till 4, I think, if my memory's right. So he calls me a couple times, and at some point I'm like, you know what? I said, this probably won't be a West Virginia state record because I don't have a West Virginia license. I was fishing on a reciprocal Ohio license.
Okay.
So ironically, if you know Steve Douglas and you go back in history, you'll realize that I think 1 year before for the same tournament, or 2 years before, he caught a fish even bigger than mine, but it wasn't a record because he had, I'm trying to remember, he had an Ohio license he bought instead of a West Virginia license because I think it was cheaper.
Okay.
So they have this weird deal where Ohio meets West Virginia. West Virginia actually owns the entire river.
Okay.
So they allow people with permanent resident licenses to fish in West Virginia waters, no problem. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I didn't need a West Virginia license, but Steve Douglas did.
Okay.
So if you go back in Steve Douglas's videos, you will find that I forget, he has something about almost catching a state record, and it was the fine print that got him, and he did not get it. But he gets credit where credit was due. So
absolutely.
So to make a long story short, Jeremy has calling. He's calling all over the state. He's calling the Ohio people, trying to figure out who he can get a hold of on a Saturday afternoon that can verify this fish. I knew right away if it was a record, I was releasing it. I mean, I have a long line of conservation. Before I started catfishing, I was a fly fishing guide for 20 years. I was a chapter president of Trout Unlimited for those same 20 years on the Mad River here in Ohio, where we do all sorts of in-stream conservation, stream riparian repair, and all sorts of things like that to keep the water healthy. On top of that, I helped found the Ohio Smallmouth Alliance.
Oh, nice.
I'm a big smallmouth fisherman. If it swims, I probably fish for it. I've fished in I think 42 states, so I get around for all different species. I was also the founder of the Southwest Ohio Katfish Club. So anyway, getting back, so Jeremy was calling all these people, and so he tells me, "Hey, why don't you be like last in line? You know, keep the boat in the water. We're recirculating fresh water till the last minute. We know you're here. That's fine. Then you can come back in." So we come in and wait 20 minutes or so in the weigh-in line, And when we get up there, of course, he weighs it. And then at this point, I mean, I take that back. We were 2 boats from weighing in, and he finally reached somebody who said, we're on our way from West Virginia DNR. Because I was ready. I was like, I'm throwing him back. Whatever the case, not a problem. So, so basically we weigh him. We realize that, it is going to be right at 60 pounds. It's going to definitely be a record. I ended up, one of my other buddies, Vincent Nadosky, he had a larger live well, more like 100-gallon live well, and he had oxygen. So, we put it in there and kept it there. A whole bunch of the people had, very supportive. They waited for like 2 to 3 hours afterwards. They wanted to see it get weighed. And they came, they weighed it, and I'd obviously taken the lie detector test, the polygraph for Cabela's for big fish. It was big fish. Turns out Chris Souders still beat us by 2 pounds. We were second place in that tournament, even with the state record. So what's that tell you?
Knows his stuff, I guess, huh?
Yeah. So so the beauty of the whole thing was I was able to release this fish. I would tell you that everything worked out right for us to do that. Jeremy helped dramatically because he hounded everybody trying to find somebody. And they had to drive over an hour to get the official scales and then like an hour back. So, I appreciate them doing that. Now, unfortunately, in the state of Ohio, you might have a shot at releasing a state record live if you caught it during a weekday. But for the most part, if you catch one, they want you to throw it in the freezer and on Monday morning, bring it to a DNR frozen so that they can officially look at it. And it's kind of a shame, but I do understand the logistics can be very hairy in that situation. So I was blessed. It's been 5 years. Several fish have been within 2 pounds of it. So it's just a matter of time. I'm surprised it's lasted this long. People think it's this fabulous thing. I will tell you, it's 15 minutes of fame, and after that, it goes away.
But the memories last forever.
The memories last forever. I've toyed around with getting a replica made of it. Except the cost on a 50-inch fish is pretty steep. I'm looking at about $2,500 to $3,000 to do it. It's like, man, it's a lot of money. I thought about getting a life-size portrait done of it, which is kind of a neat thing that people are doing. So one of these days I'll hit the lottery and I'll do that. But, in the meantime, 2 or 3 grand goes a long way in tournament fishing, as you know.
Yes, it does. That'll get you through quite a few of them. So I guess since you've had this experience, do you do anything different now that you go in the water as opposed to what you might have done beforehand, now that you know that possibility is out there and you actually realized it?
I would say a couple things. The first thing I would say is, nobody goes out expecting to catch a state record. It could probably happen to you at any time, any place. I certainly wouldn't have expected it there, but it happened. And it could happen to anybody at any place. I mean, there's no question about it. What I would tell you is that I probably wouldn't do anything any different, because if I caught another state record, and I believe I had another state record on for Indiana, which was an American eel. I had one about 8 pounds, and they didn't really have they didn't have that as an fit till the next year. They didn't have that as a species you could turn in.
Of course.
So I caught a monster down there. It was the first eel I'd ever caught. It was pretty cool. But
that is awesome.
But if you travel enough, I mean, it could be in your backyard. You could hit some local pond. You never know, and hit some monster tank. But I would certainly release that fish in a tournament series. If I was fun fishing, I'd have a lot more flexibility to call other people and maybe try to keep it alive. I would do everything in my power, but at some point I would give up that chase and release the fish. No question.
That's a nice thing. You're number 9 in this series of 10, and every single interview so far has said safety of the fish is more important than that record attached to the name. So that's really nice to see. Yeah.
I mean, if you're chasing big fish, you have to respect them. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, and that might be a testament to why so many fish have come so close to yours, just having that one back in the gene pool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah. So, I keep telling all the people that say, oh, somebody will post one that looks close. Justin Connor had one that was longer, and West Virginia actually has length and weight records. Not too many states have that. He had one that was longer. And of course, as soon as he posts that, he might have a state record. My phone starts blowing up, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm ready to pass the torch on to somebody else.
There you go.
Without any problem, because I would love for those West Virginia fish are getting bigger every year as they started stocking them about 10 or 12 years ago. So, ironically, Doc Lang, his wife Lynn, actually had, I think, about a 36 or 37 pounder for West Virginia about 2 or 3 years earlier than that.
Okay.
So
that's pretty cool.
Also in that same tournament.
Yeah.
So just
a lucky tournament, I guess.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. So.
Well, it's definitely the ideal situation when you have all those resources at your disposal and people to help out. That's the best way to do it.
I mean,
if you have a choice.
Yeah. So on my state record, I do also want to reach out to Bink Fox. A lot of people know Janet and Bink from longtime anglers, great people. Before the tournament, me and Ryan had asked Bink, because he knows that water better than we do. We're like, man, what do you think? Where would you go? And he pointed us to that area. He said, this area or that area. He went to the other area. We went to this area and caught the state record. So it's kind of a running joke between them that I'm always thanking him for the heads up. Because you just never know.
Yeah, good advice is hard to come by.
That's right.
Cool. So do you have another person in mind you might want to pass this question on to?
I would say,
just because this video is over doesn't mean the fun has to stop here. Check out these videos down below. Catch you some more goobers while you wait for our next video to drop. Later.